Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Type Thursday Book Club, episode 9. This week, we are reading together as experts in typography, branding, and UX UI, Grid Systems and Graphic Design by Josef Müller-Brockmann. 3 experts review under a 5-element rubric based on private ratings. We're going to review it together. I'm Thomas Jockin. I'm the founder of Type Thursday. And I have here Michael from Type Thursday Phoenix and Matheo from Type Thursday LA. Hope you guys are doing well today.
Doing great.
Doing so good in Austin, Texas for Cropped.
Nice. Fantastic. So Type Thursday is a meeting place for people who love type. We meet once a month in physical meetups where people share their work in progress and get feedback from the community. When we're not at physical Type Thursday events, we're online together here for the Type Thursday Book Club. Be sure to check out Type Thursday in your local city or check out how you can start a chapter on our website, typethursday.org. So this week, Josef Müller-Brockmann's Foundational Text, Grid Systems and Graphic Design is our book we're reading together. Will we love it? Will we hate it? We're going to find out together because we read it privately, and now we're going to reveal publicly our ratings on the system according to 5 criteria. Those 5 criteria are clarity of concepts, visual inspiration, practical application, typographic insight, and overall impact on a 5-point rating system, 5-star rating system, better said. So, Michael and Matteo, ready to get started?
Do it.
Guys, I'm about to die here from choking as I power through that introduction, but we're going to do it.
Could be our last show.
I know. Tell you what, let's mix this up. I'll let Matteo go first so I can get some water. Then I'll come in and then Michael will come in.
Right.
Yes, I will jump on in. So right off the bat, this book, Grid Systems and Graphic Design, is probably one of the most clear books I have ever read about grids and how to design and put those to use. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and swirl in to a solid 5 out of 5 with this book. I think the way he broke down these concepts just makes it absolutely clear, and to how to break these down in different page layouts. And there's lots of other examples he gives that are not just him explaining it, but him showing you along the way. That just drives the point home.
Well, to jump on for me. So here's the thing. It's got really clear demonstrations of the core ideas. Totally agree with Matteo on that point. The use of a modular division of either 1, 2, 3, or 4 subdivisions across vertical and horizontal axes effectively organizes and harmonizes type and image into cohesive layouts. I think that this text demonstrates that systematically, as Matteo's pointed out, both with physical examples and a systematic discussion about it. I will comment, though, that the justification for the grid use is largely assumed with this kind of, this is very much as modernist air. This is kind of a summary or conclusion of a line of discussion that's been occurred before in modernist graphic design tradition. There's a lot of gesturing towards a broader modernist practice rather than explicit argumentation within the text itself. So for those reasonings about why the grid system works and why is it done this way, I do find that kind of hinders slightly its clarity. But in terms of its demonstration about the grid system, it's incredibly effective. So I split the difference of that, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 because of those points. Michael?
Yeah. So I'm gonna, I was thinking to myself that I might go in between the two just to make it all, but I'm gonna go 5. The clarity of concepts here are exceptionally clear. And all these things coming together, like when I learned about these concepts, it made me a better designer. At times this can feel rigid and maybe like formulaic, but I think that overall it's improved me tremendously because it's a clear system for organizing complexity. And whenever I'm trying to do that with type, whenever I'm trying to teach designers about how to take clutter and organize it very effectively. This is exactly what I think of and what I go to. I have a lot of grid books, but this one stands out. So that's why I give it the 5 score.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely the presentation, I think in terms of, for me, right, in terms of like teaching students to use grids, absolutely. I think it's a really good introduction text for that. I do find sometimes students get overwhelmed about like how many divisions should I do, right? And he does demonstrate kind of how to think about it, and he does show a higher level complexity of like significant division. I think almost like a 20-unit division, it seems like, right? And I think that's, for me, in terms of that discernment, at least I felt reading it, it wasn't really clear those aspects about it. But I don't disagree in terms of like demonstrating how the grid system works and operates against text and image. Again, totally agree. I think this book is very clear on those points. Matteo, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think, the way he breaks it down is sometimes a little verbose, but it's never unclear. I mean, and to boot, he gives you a ton of visuals to go along with it that help explain these concepts so it's more clear. But I think you're correct. It's like there could be an area where there's some tension with students where it's like, whoa, information overload and for a beginner. And in the book, at the very end, he concludes by saying this book was written for beginners to be able to learn and approach this. But I think a beginner would get very overwhelmed by trying to start here.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of these things would be invisible if you didn't, point them out. So, pointing them out and actually showing the structure of it and demonstrating this in practical use is very, very valuable. And also, like I would say, like, you don't see my skeleton, but my skeleton and everything on my bones are in there. So it's the foundation of design, I believe. So that's where I think this really stands out.
Solid, very good. Or shall we move forward?
Absolutely.
Matteo, the floor is yours.
Yes, alrighty. So at first, I was looking at this book, flipping through, and I was not very visually inspired at all. But then as I dug in and I started to read the material, see the visuals that went along with the explanation of the concepts, the grid, and how he breaks down applying the grid, and then giving you visual demonstrations of how he would split, 1 column, 2 columns, and even how he would measure the margins in a mathematical way that makes it musical. It reminded me a lot of Robert Bringhurst. And so that's where I was like, there's so much technical visuals he's provided along your journey that then I came in and I was like, you know what? This is where I'll jump in and slide in my head. I was thinking I was going to rank this book like a solid, probably 2. But then as I got deeper into the book and came to the conclusion, I was like, you know what? I'm going to land him at a solid 4 for visual inspiration. He technically black and whites out all of the designs, but he's doing that so that you can stay focused on the visuals and technicality of how to apply the grid. And so that I'm ranking him solid 4 because there's so much great visual materials to help you understand and grasp these concepts.
Yeah, I was very split on this one myself, Matteo. It's not a dazzling text in terms of visual inspiration, but it's definitely disciplined. It's the layouts really exemplify modernist restraint and taste. So for me, the tension I have with this book is that typography section about it. It really feels kind of caught up unresolved with a tension between an interest on the text, on like the textual quality of typographic genres versus that competing desire for a really smooth, neutral reading experience. So what I'm saying is that that typography section I felt like kind of really hindered what was trying to be communicated about the layout and use of type in the composition. So for me, I did weigh that a lot in my assessment. But with the overall layout of the book itself, like kind of similar to the Bringhurst point, like the Bringhurst book is not going to visually inspire you on the inside, except on the detail of like, this is how you think about layout. Like, how can you typeset with the principles and ideas? I did weigh
Dramatic
it.
pause.
It's causing attention because of that. So for those reasons, I gave it a 3.
Ah. Okay. So I was trying to figure out a number for yes and no. And Thomas, you nailed it as well. And I'm going to put myself right underneath you right there. Yes, the visuals are not going to knock you out. They're clean and instructional, not emotionally or stylistically inspiring, but to someone like myself, they are super inspiring. And I'll even give you this. I'm going to solo me. So I love baseball.
Yes.
So all the stuff that you don't see on a baseball field or a baseball diamond and in the stands. And one of the great things about baseball is every park is different. So each of the outfield walls are, the dimensions vary. But on the infield, it's all 90 feet, 60 feet 6 inches for the pitching mound. So there is a structure to it, but it's also flexible. And where this, someone might not look at this and think to themselves, "Oh, this is, I want to create something today." For me, it kind of did in a way. So I'm kind of thinking on both sides here. Again, I love taking these and trying to replicate them and make them into what I want to use them for, then also break those grids as well. But it's not about expressive design. So I like making both of those, bringing in both sides of those. So that's why I gave it a 3. Again, I'm definitely neutral on this side. It's half yes and half no.
Yeah. I couldn't say better myself, Michael. I think it's very true. I think in terms of I think again, actually talking out loud, and I would actually almost want to move it a little higher up just to be more consistent with myself from last week where I went out of control and gave it a 5 at Bringhurst because of its typographic orientation. Listen, if you want to go I'm not a modernist in that way. Like if I was a full-on modernist or I was someone who's really into that modernist aesthetic, I'd be all about this book. This book is it's a perfect exemplar of the ideas. So thus, under that same logic, I would give it a 5. But because that's not my only modality of interest in design, I think the typographic element of the expressive quality of type and the textual, almost musicality of language itself with type, that if you let the grid overpower it, could just strip it out and kind of give a very dead, flat tone. So for me, I will admit some kind of subjectivity in my call about this of how much visual inspiration I got from this text. But I still think it deserves at least a 3 because I know for certain designers, this is going to be very important for them. And especially if they're really interested in this kind of specific mode of modernist thought. I think this book is a very good exemplar of it. Really no different than the Bringhurst book in that sense. So I think that's fair what you're saying, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have people fighting us if we say anything bad about
Still fun. Love it. I'm gonna fight you guys a little bit because, and here's why I ranked it a 4. You can basically see from the grid system here, and I hope this is showing up on. It looks like it is. I have not seen someone explain the grid system as clearly as this before. Then he gives you visual examples from Japanese print block era and from European era and from modernist era, and then physical space 3D mapped visually with a grid. So he's not just telling you about 2D, he's telling you about 3D. And that's where I was like, you know what? He's hitting it with visual inspiration in a whole nother way. And it's black and white, it's not in color. So he's kind of challenging you as a designer to think practically about these concepts and apply them without getting distracted by the colors and the visuals and the fun flashiness of the design itself. So that's where I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna bring this up for visual inspiration. I can't, I was like, maybe there could be more of this. I think this is where, color could have helped some of these ideas, their spreads come to life even more. But it is a solid, like, this is one of the best books I've picked up about grid systems and clearest explanation with visuals to back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Shall we continue? Dale, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just be straight up here with my Figma file. Let me just jump in and practical application. This is one of the best books in graphic design through your career that you can go back to and you can practically apply over and over and over again. And you can reference this as a manual. You will not just read this book once, you will go back to it and use it and apply it. And Josef has an entire section called practical application and practical examples, where he's giving you those examples of, hey, here's what the grid looks like, and here's how you apply it and add images and typography and text into it. Here's how other designers have done it. And just, it's wonderful. I think this is probably one of the best practical application books I've seen, because, in my previous ratings, I was saying there was not a lot of step-by-step showing me how the author or the designer got to their final solution. It was just, here's the final solution, really beautiful visual, but where's this process and the step-by-step? And Josef does that here in his book. He gives you the understanding, the baseline knowledge, and then says, here's a ton of practical examples. He goes to historic, references texts of the past all the way to Gutenberg's Bible, and even brings it up to date with modern day, showing you examples of how the grid system is applied with 3D space and typography, which I love this spread. This was like, here's one of the reasons where I'm like, look at that. A grid system applied to typography and how, and even human anatomy, and the grid system applied to the human anatomy. So I was just like, this is off the charts for me. Yeah.
All right, fun times.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael, it's my turn.
Oh, I know.
It's all good. Fun. We got some disagreements, because you know what it is? It's okay for the beginners. 100%. If this is like your first, if you're like junior designer, like that freshman who's in their first design class or typography class, this book is definitive. Like, you go to this book. I'll give it a 5 for the beginners. But for anyone who has like experience in design, I had to be honest. Again, this is my like I could sense some of my subjectivity and bias kicking in on this. It's foundational, but in that obvious matter, it's like, well, yeah, of course. So as a result, the practical application is kind of colored by that fact of, well, yeah, this is how we do design. But that's the thing, is that this text was meant to be for beginners. So in my mind, I kind of had to split the difference. So I think for me, because of that kind of splitting point, I gave it a 3 because of that point. So but this is with a caveat that for beginners, this should be disregarded and given a 5 for the beginners. But for anyone with a seasoned experience in this book, you're not going to get like that much. Also, I'm slightly cut because I thought anything, and I talk more about this in the next section too. Anything that I thought, and this actually, be fair, chronologically, this book came prior to Ellen's typographic style. Ellen's of the like insights you'll gain as a real expert or someone in the field for a long time, they're going to feel very obvious to you. Like, So you're not going to get that much application, and you're going to be thinking about, well, how does this apply to the digital space, or like how do we deal with flexible grids or responsive web and things like that. So I had to discount it because of that. So I do want to recognize that Mateo's points about, like, especially for beginners, this book is very, very practical in application. I think it's very reasonable in that part.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of people agreeing with us. That this is a outstanding book in the comments as well. And I'm going to put me on here, but you may just see my ear. I think this is practical application right away. I mean, for me, I wanted to take this and make something right away because and there's of all the books that we've done that we use so far, I feel like this is the book that we can go to and actually start building stuff. It's the building blocks of a lot of the things we talk about, the things that we're inspired by. Even Matteo showing that picture again of the human anatomy. I was like, that it made me even look at things a lot differently. And I look at different things that I'm building or thinking about. In fact, I'm doing a website right now, and I'm like, how can I structure this a little bit differently than I usually would, just to give it a little bit more intrigue and a little bit more, something to it. And I never thought about maybe I can change up the grid a bit. So the practical application of this is, using it in editorial, using it in branding, digital design. I think that you can use it for most anything, and you can use it right away. So that's why I love this book.
Yeah,
I love that, Michael.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Thomas.
No, go on, Matteo. The floor is yours. Go.
I love that Michael brought up the point about dealing with a web design problem right now, because that's the era. That's the move. The industry is shifting to digital landscapes, everything from digital billboards to UIs to virtual reality and augmented reality. It's digital displays extending our interactions with reality. This book it's dated probably pre all this, but the way he approaches these principles, and he doesn't talk about software. Again, no software talk, just principles and theory. You can take that and you can scale that. And Michael just said it right now. He was inspired to try to solve the problem on the web a little bit differently with approaching the grid in a different way. That's maybe more fun or exciting or spontaneous, because everybody does the same thing on the web. It's like hero image, slider, 3-column layout, button. So it's like, Michael, if you can find a way to play with that grid system and just bring in some spontaneity and graphic design that we saw in print and take that to the web, I think be fun, dynamic.
Yeah, I think the big note is that, again, the foundations of the text, what you can do with it in application is very important. I think that's fair. I think you guys are skewing me more to be more reasonable about this, because the presumption that's obvious is the expertise bias, right? But for beginners and many people want to reconsider it by reading this text, I think it is fair to talk about how even though it has a very obvious datedness because of its context of when it was printed and written, its applications are pretty universal, right? So I think that is quite fair.
Yep. Yeah, let's move on.
Alrighty, so we're in a section about typographic insight. And at first, I was debating on ranking this book low for typographic insight, because we just read Elements of Typographic Style by Robert Bringhurst. So I had a little bit of bias, especially when you look through this book and you compare it to typographic layout of the Elements of Typographic Style. What you notice is there are so many widows that is just like, oh my God, no. What were they thinking? And right off the bat, from the early pages, he's just landing widow, widow, widow. And the rag, if you look at the rag on the right-hand side, it's really rough, right? And so I used to never experiment with justified text, because I worked in legal for so many years. Then I saw Robert Bringhurst do justified text the right way. And now we're reading grid systems and you see a rag right. And it's just like, wait, this is messy. And all these orphans. You're just like, wait, no, like fix this. Especially because, Josef is from a grid's layout, and like all his poster designs, they're so typographically inspiring. And he has a very strong, ability to put this to work through all of his design work. But then in the book, you see all these widows here, and then the messy rag, and I'm just like, no, like, who was in charge of this? Like, go in there and clean that up. There's so many ways to fix these problems. So for typographic insight, I was gonna like, oh. But then as I got through the book, he has a whole section about typographic insight, how to apply, how to pre-layout, and how to sketch your illustrations with your type and your copywriting and plan columns. And he gives you step-by-step examples again to how to solve these problems. And he encourages the designer, every designer, to start sketching small scale, but proportional and to scale, all the copywriting. So you can learn how the type is going to lay out in the width, in the margins, and the measure, so that when you're drafting things, it comes to life as you're designing it digitally or for print and final production. So with that said, he saved me on the typographic insight. I don't know who allowed all those messy typesetting throughout the book. I'm gonna land this one. I think I'm gonna split the difference. It's a 4.5 for me on typographic insight. Bringhurst gives us a lot more. Grid systems goes further into grid systems, and there's a section about typographic insight, and it's reiterated throughout. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah. All right. I mean, listen, this in terms of layout as a structuring tool for typesetting, this book is fantastic. I can't deny that. But I do believe it's really limited on typographic depth. I don't think it lacks the sensitivity and nuance that we found in the works of Ellen's typographic style and inside paragraphs. Or even on the lettering side of, right, Golden Secrets of Lettering Manual. Like we've really read some expert texts that have like the typographic insight off the charts. That ain't this book. This book is not for that. It operates, I think in that sense, actually, it's fun. I'm being a little hard. Look at my rating. I'm a little harder on than I think I would be right now. But I think it operates at a pretty like medium register. It's definitely useful because of that layout typesetting aspect of the grid, massively important in relation to image, especially incredibly important. But I think we've read enough text from other authors and experts that give us way more typographic insight in particular. So for those reasons, I gave it a, where's my thing? There you go. I gave it a 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I think that if we wouldn't have read the book last week, I might have been more forgiving on this. And Stefan in the chat actually brings up a great point that this book was translated from German. So yeah, to see, the typographic, well, they're not errors. It's just, this happens in translation for sure. That's why, I was landing on a 4 anyway, because, a lot of this is more about how, type interacts with pictures and different layouts and stuff like that. But it isn't super into typographic insight, although it does have that. It has typographic style in it, effective in the application of all these things. And I think that, improving all of these things will improve your typography overall. But yes, I think that we definitely were definitely influenced of that. And that's the first thing I saw, Matteo, was that as well. Is my camera, did it really like freeze on that?
You're
frame?
absolutely frozen.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Froze. Technology.
But I love that it's on that. I look like I'm really intense.
Yes. Everyone's intensely. I mean, I look at the chat. I see it blowing up at 9 comments. I think my rating blew up the chat.
Thomas's rating blew up the chat. But okay, let me show you. Right off the bat, I highlighted this both in German and in English, a widow on both sides because he gives you
Oh,
both.
okay.
And then that rag, and then that rag. Look at that right rag. I highlighted that too. So, Stefan, you brought up a great point. He was probably pissed off when he saw what the publisher did. It was translated from English to from German to English. They did a really good job with the translation. However, on both sides of columns, on the German side and on the English side, the widows are there all throughout the whole book. So I was like, who let this fly? Like, no. Yeah, that's where I was like, okay, once we saw Bringhurst, who had a perfectly set page where it was the right rhythm, but no widows or orphans throughout the whole entire thing.
But to push back a little bit on this, you know, it's like, what about ignoring? That's just like an issue of like the talk doesn't like the action, the action doesn't back the talk, which was kind of similar to like we beat up design of everyday things, right? Because we're talking about all this importance of affordances and utility and function with norms, and it was like this like unusable text arrangement. It was so bizarre, right? So I think that's fair to kind of beat it up a little bit on this, but which I guess you're doing by giving it a little 0.5. Like you're not weighing it that bad. I do think modernists have a bad attitude about type. I'm sorry. I'll put my cards on the table. I think modernists are not very sensitive to type because when you want to treat it as a smooth process of reading, like this kind of smoothed out, generalized approach, that it kind of any gesture to these other domains of type are secondary at best. Like you're not gonna. I mean, if you're gonna be if you relied on this book for your typographic insight only, you didn't go to the other texts. They get a richer understanding. You're not going to be I don't think you're going to be a very mature typographer, in my opinion. You'll be very good at layout and grid arrangement and sequence. You'll be very good at that. But in terms of typographic, like if you use this text as your guideline of how to understand type in its totality, it's not going to get you it's going to give you some hindrances because it doesn't treat type as this textual quality that you have to respond to. And it's not like he's not aware of this though, because like, in his grid system, he's very aware of typographic anatomy. Like some of his type, he lines up to the stems. I see it. I see the intentionality in his thinking when he's using type. So it's not like he's not aware of a lot of these aspects of it. But I'm just saying in terms of the text of what I read in the book, I didn't get this kind of really deep intimacy. General gestures about it, yes. But like really attentionality to like think about your grid alignment of how your stems will align to the grid system. Don't treat your type as this like abstract box. I think partly is because the technology of typesetting was very different then than the approach nowadays of just like defaults, right? Just like text boxes that just kind of get plopped in.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And then the great comment is that, maybe it's done on purpose so we could have an online discussion about it, which is a great point.
That's a good one. Thank you, Larry. I forget. Oh God, Stefan's done. He's done with us. Oh man. Okay. All right. Hopefully we get Stefan back on this one and bring his temperature and heart rate down, because for me, I'm gonna say the overall impact of this book, years later with the era of digital and the way things are evolving, the overall impact and lasting influence of this book still remains. Joseph's work is absolutely outstanding. The grid system, the way he explains it so clearly, and the way he backs it up with his visual examples, and also in his work. Stefan made a great comment in there of like, show me a chef who can make a, amazing omelet. Probably not. Right? Like all the other food is great. But yeah. It's the same for a designer, right? So maybe the publishers had their hand with this book and he didn't get to fix certain things. But what I'm seeing here is the overall impact, despite all the feedback that we've given, all the little things we've critiqued. We're getting into the nitty gritty. Plus, we're judging it based on Bringhurst a little bit, so there's some bias. But the overall impact still remains. This is such a powerful tool for your design career that you can reference time and time again.
I like it.
Yeah, we came up very different designers with very different perspectives. Okay. as an introduction text, I would absolutely give this to beginners. It's also very valuable as a historical artifact of modernist graphic design, right? It's a great summary of that account and that tradition. I can't take that away from that. So these have impacts because of that. But in my opinion, in terms of typographic training, it's not sufficient in its own. It's insufficient to develop that typographic judgment, but it's a very good tool, right, to build on that. It's going to require supplementation of other texts, that the ones we've done in the book club so far. We're 9 episodes in, so there's 8 other ones that I would definitely consider in supplement to this. And again, I think I'm letting my kind of coloring as a designer, what my emphasis are on to show up where, I read this book, I definitely go back to read it. I read it once or twice to kind of pick up on and reflect on, but then I kind of internalize the principle and it's in there now in my head, like how to think about this personally. So for those reasons, I gave it again a 2 rating on those points.
Goodness. Wow. Amazing. Well, you know what? I'm gonna try. Hopefully my picture is frozen still. It is awesome. So I'm gonna put my intenseness into this one. I am strongly with Matteo here. The 5 for 5 with me. I feel like it reshapes how designers should think about structure and organization. In my classes, I was teaching InDesign. We're learning about, just putting elements on a page, but also using tables in that. And it's a completely different concept. And then making the spacing in those cells where the text goes, where everything goes. And I feel like it's overwhelming if I were just to say it. Just even me saying it is probably too much. But I feel like this book is really good in showing that and showing, in real world, like how things are laid out, why they need to have a grid, why they should have a foundation, and, whether you embrace it or resist it, the changes in your approach to layout are going to be monumental after you look at this book. So for that reason, overall impact for me, it was already a 5 for 5, but it's like I said, if I could rate it higher, I would, because I loved all the concepts in here.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I think it's just weighing of different. Again, I want to put even these ratings. Again, it's clearly my kind of coloring as a kind of designer I am. Like I say all this with this ratings to say for beginners, go get this book. Like for beginners, absolutely, you got to read this as a beginner. So, and I find that in terms of historical context of knowing modernism, this book is very important for those reasons. But I think that's for me, the tension is the larger account of what does typography mean and the practice of design. I do find that, again, personally for me, I think there's areas of it's a little bit of a lost point on me for those reasons.
Oh, this was that's we're duking it out over here, Thomas, because I feel like this one is one of the most impactful. And I know we just came off Bringhurst, so I think there's a little bit of that biases. And the specimens inside the pages, there's definitely some things that are off. That was probably out of his control. The cover, though, gorge, and the alignment of the grid system, that overshoot on the G.
Yes, exactly. Like, no, the guy knows type. Like, look at that. Look at that alignment of the stem and the overshoot for the G. Yeah, it's fantastic. He knows what he's doing. Fantastic. It's very good. Even the small details, like the finish of the varnish on that side. No, it's great.
Yeah. But I think for me, it's like, this is a book that there's concepts in here. Well, I guess like Michael was saying, when you're working with a table design, it's kind of like going to give you a good reference point of how to take those, larger multiple columns, and then subdivide those columns down and kind of give you a good understanding of like how to represent that. So I think it's a quick tool to basically reference when you're getting into that complicated stuff. I guess, there's a point there of like, you're going to internalize this eventually and be able to kind of move on and not have to reference it again. But I really think this is a fundamental book, because everything I have read about grid systems online and seen through sort of articles, YouTube videos, it just was a mess. It's very hard to like understand and comprehend the idea. No one does a good job of explaining it for a beginner, and there's a lot of technical. I think Joseph, he did a good job explaining it for the beginner in a way that's approachable and reapproachable, and still has value to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's like one of those like in the glove box manuals that it has that kind of feel at times, but it's like I think it with repetition and looking at it more than once a year and reminding yourself that this exists. Again, it definitely changed me. And we have so many comments coming in about and before we go on, I wanted to address this one. Thomas, is there a book that tackles grids that you would score higher?
I mean, it's Bringhurst. I think Bringhurst does a very good job at it. I think also a lot of the principles behind it, I think things like Gestalt principles of like visual relationship figure ground and proximity. Like I find there are other ways, like when I talk about this with students, they get overwhelmed by this grid subdivision idea because they don't have any discernment of like, how much do you do? And in what way do you divide and stop dividing, right? And then how do you align things that have more like substantial weight to each other, others? So I appreciate that question. So my first note is Bringhurst is the first move. And then I would go to things like, oh God, I can't remember the top of my head, but like there's specific books on Gestalt theory, on proximity, and I guess it's been simulated into UX, visual design concepts a lot. I find those things are more intelligible for students to kind of get a hold of. But to be fair, those are drawn from this tradition. So that's a fair, so I think it is a fair counterpoint.
Yeah. And there's this one, Timothy Samara, and Brockman book is a classic. Yeah. So I again, this is a great discussion, and I love where it's all going. Should we move? Do you want me to move over to the wheel?
Yes. Let's see what kind of prompt we get today, and then what in the wild card round.
Great. Just give me a second.
Great question. Great engagement in the chat and questions too. I think Sispan stormed off.
Yeah, I think my antagonistical voting has caused some significant ruptures. Correct.
All right. Well, here's some more randomness. Let's do this.
Ooh, we got a new prompt. New one. Invent a fictional blurb from a famous typographer. What would they say? Ooh, okay. A fictional verb from a famous typographer. What would they say? Thomas, this is a good one for you to kick off with.
I mean, I was Massimo Vignetti instantly came to my mind for this, and it was like the text, like the best text to read, or something like that along those lines. Like you can, because like the modernists would love this book. This book is absolutely fantastic in the modernist tradition. Like it's a great synopsis. So like a Massimo Vignetti quote, blurb about it as a forward, I could see that very easily. That's an example.
This is a tough one. A fictional blurb, okay, from a famous typographer.
From a famous typographer. That's like
Because like, and the reason why I'm struggling with this one is only because like most of the people that I know that I'm inspired by typography wise would not work. They would work on a baseline grid maybe, but not a complete grid. And it's more expressive. So, but there is something to it. Matteo, do you have anything?
Well, if you heard about Hutzpah, the sisters who founded a creative agency in LA, they also founded the Type Foundry Hood Fonts. Follow them on Instagram, super fun. And they show their process of creating fonts, and they use a grid system. So I could see them having like a fictional blurb here to say like, learn the grid, make your fonts, have fun doing it, something like that. Because as they show through their creative process, they have fun, but the basis is sketching, small scale sketches,
Mm.
and Josef Brockmann tells you to do the same thing. Start with small scale sketches, and then concept your ideas out, get them on paper, and that's going to train your brain and your eye to then translate them to the final publication.
Mm.
Actually, I just saw Chris Doe, by the way, because I know he has collaborations with the sisters. So I thought he would instantly say, "Go read this book." He was just that'd be the blurb, basically.
Just that. Yeah, go read this book. Stop what you're doing. Read this now.
Go read this now.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got a lot of inspiration. I said like that goes way back, maybe like 10 years of when I first met him. Like he was one of the first people to like just talk about like grid work and all that stuff. And it's like I felt like I needed to revisit that, but it was like, you know, learn the grid, but also you can break the grid once you establish that. So it's like, and that's what I see in a lot of great architecture. There's a lot of foundation, and obviously things will break if you don't build it right. But like then, you know, getting more stylistic with it. Yeah, this one's a tough random one. That's totally. So let me add your rubric back to the stage.
Yeah, back we're going back to this. So, right. So remember, next week there's Type Thursday LA. So that will be happening next week. Who are off next week? No book club. But episode 10 will be Thinking with Type with Ellen Lupton. So I think I'm looking forward to that text myself. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Grab the books, and you can join part of the conversation at the book club. Agree or disagree, challenge the charges of the review. Who knows? You're always welcome to hang out with us in the chat. Actually, before we move on, any other chats we want to feature before we head on to the next section?
Oh, let's see here. I mean, the chat's been.
I see 32 comments right now, at least in my notification.
Yeah, there's been. Now I have to go back through it.
Carla Viviana. Oh, there you go.
I mean, this one was definitely, we need to shame the person who did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna hunt him down. Yeah, that's interesting too. It's like, where do you think that we could find the original version? Would that be available like for purchase, or is it probably more doing some more hunting on that one?
Yeah, if it's maybe like a German publication house that had no English translation on the side, because like that's part of the issue that creates the widows. Well, I don't know. Or did he make it that way from the beginning and the publisher messed it up? And when they pumped all the text into their software and it just messed things up, who knows?
Yeah, we should encourage people to put their own ratings in the chat as well.
Oh, yeah, drop your chat. As well. You could rate along with us per each section. Yes. I would, yeah.
Put your star emojis in.
Like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Let's encourage that going forward. I think that's a fun idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smash that like button, like and subscribe. Helps us a ton.
So on that note, transitioning, and Matheo, you want to talk about Type Thursday LA and what's going to be happening next week?
Yes. So next week at Art Center College, HMCT, our partners there, are allowing us to host Type Thursday at their space. 3 presenters, we're going to show their work. And that's the 3 people you see here: Jorge Gomez, Shaquille, and Tony. All of them have amazing projects, work in progress. So something that they need feedback on. And you, the audience members, get to give feedback about the work that you're seeing and how it can be better. Michael, our special guest, is going to be there as a guest dialogue lead as well. So it's going to be a fun, dynamic event. Michael, why do you love these events? Why do you keep coming?
Well, I mean, I was just talking about it with somebody yesterday. It's like, my networking I felt it was strong, and I felt like I was doing a good job. But then I truly found like I found my tribe when I started going to Type Thursday events. And this is a perfect example of it. Like in 2017, I presented, but I'm still coming back in 2026 and to a place that we were talking about it before the show. It's like, right before COVID, and it's like that was it seems like a lifetime ago that that happened, but there were so many great people, and we lost a lot of momentum, and I feel like we're only now seeing that momentum that we had back then, and so I'm excited about going back and seeing all my great friends there.
That's awesome. And Michael, yeah, you presented back then, and I presented in 2018, like 2 years after you, and I felt the same way. That's when I found my people, was when I started coming to Type Thursday. Since my first event, I fell in love with the community, nerding out about typography, and I realized, whoa, there's so much I don't know. There's so much more to design, and it just made me fall in love with the career and the craft again, and from a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
And it makes my heart sing to hear all this starting Type Thursday from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously having you guys bring Type Thursday to your cities. So obviously everybody go check it out. It's gonna be a really fun Type Thursday from what Matteo told me about it. It's gonna be a lot of great conversation. Michael's gonna be there dropping in. So obviously you're in the LA area, come hang out and see both Michael and Matteo in person at Type Thursday LA. So I think that covers our episode for today. It's been a pleasure. The chat was on fire today. It was very fun. I'm glad I was the hater of the day and I caused a lot of shenanigans. Also, shout outs to, by the way, listen, sometimes you got to be the crab in the bucket to like drop points out. Because Andrea made a comment agreeing with something I said. So good. I know I'm the only one who has opinions about the type side.
Yeah. Aw. Loving all these comments right now. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Lorem Ipsum. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Stefan. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Thanks everybody for joining us. So everybody, come to Type Thursday LA next week. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks for Thinking with Type with Ellen Lupton. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.